Welcome back. I'm super excited to turn my outdated spare bedroom into my new office. Howdy, I'm Sadie and I do lots of DIY and woodworking. And today I'm going to be focusing on the floors. Hi Oscar. These oak parquet floors need a lot of love, so let's get started. At first glance, the floors don't look so bad, but close up you can see they have gapping. Probably because these floors were glued down directly to the concrete subfloor by the previous owner. They also have oranged over time and have some wear from furniture. So let's start this makeover. First up was the demo. Basically take everything out of this room, first the old desktop, the old curtains, and remove the baseboards. Then I got ready and I painted a fresh coat of white paint. I then rented this large rectangular orbital floor sander. I went with this rather than a belt sander because of the grain in the parquet floors were going in different directions, and I didn't want a chance leaving any marks. It was super easy to set up. It's just this red foam pad that you insert onto these pokey things, and then you pick your different grits. I got 36 grit, 60 grit, 80 grit, and 120. Here you'll see I'm starting with the 60 grit because I didn't want to go to 36 and possibly leave marks if I didn't need to. So let's get this thing plugged in and see what happens. Oh, and be sure to sweep or vacuum before each grit so you don't get swirlies from random debris. All right, are you ready? I was super nervous at this point because I've never done this before, but just release the handle so it's in a comfortable position and let's go. After a couple of passes, I inspected how the 60 grit sandpaper was doing at removing the old finish. And well, it wasn't so great. So I went over that spot again, and ultimately I decided to go down to the 36 grit. Doing this worked so much better. This room is roughly 10 foot by 14 feet, and I think I ended up using 3 of the 36 grit pieces of sandpaper on it. It is a slow process, and you'll definitely be getting in your steps for the day. I ended up going over the floor roughly 2 to 3 times with each grit, overlapping my path in each direction. Then, once I was done with the 36 grit, I used my 6-inch random orbital sander to sand the edges where the large sander couldn't reach. And this is where we are at so far. It looks like we've taken a lot of the orange out of the flooring, but let's take a closer look and actually see if we've got enough of that off. And when you do look closer, you can see that there's some spots on the floor that still kind of have that orange look and some of the old finish. So I went back over it one more time. Next, I vacuumed any excess dust off the floor, and it was time to fill the gaps. I'm using a water-based wood filler by Timbermate in the color white oak. I've used this a lot before on the furniture that I make, but this is a first time on a floor for me. Since we're covering a large area and the filler is kind of thick, I went ahead and thinned it slightly with water. And then I used a plastic spatula thing and started to fill the gaps. And by fill the gaps, I meant spread it over the entire floor as not to miss a spot. At this point, it was the end of day 1, and I am wondering what the heck have I gotten myself into? What do you think? How's it looking? Huh? Always gotta get the sander out. And I think Awesome Oscar was thinking the same thing. But so far we've sanded the floor with 36 grit sandpaper, then we wood filled the gaps, And now I'm using 60 grit to remove the excess wood filler. More vacuuming, and then a fresh sheet of 60 grit sandpaper, and went back over it a second time. Then to change the sandpaper, it's super easy. Just rip off that other one, peel off the sticky from a new one, and press it on. So now we are on to 80 grit. And then lastly, 120 grit. After each grit, I did go around the edges with my orbital sander and make sure to vacuum in between each grit as well. And once I had the floor looking how I wanted it sand-wise, I went ahead and vacuumed it one more time, but there's still a dust residue on it. So I got out the mineral spirits and wiped them down to get that excess dust off. Because I am going to be using a finish that bonds with the wood, I want to make sure that it's as clean as possible. Speaking of finish, I'm using Rubio Monocoat in the color 5% white. You're going to need a spreader, a white Scotch-Brite pad, a mixing bowl, blue paper towels, gloves, and some knee pads. This is a two-part system, one the color and one a hardener. I mixed the entire can for this floor, but I did end up having some left over. This is an oil wax-based finish, and I chose it because it leaves a matte sheen on the floor and doesn't leave a plastic feel like polyurethane does. Oh, and it's super simple to apply. You get the color and the finish in one easy step. I worked in sections, just poured some down, used the spreader to get it all over the wood. My spreading technique did get better as I went on. Once you have one good section done, then I use the white Scotch-Brite pad to basically rub it in to make sure I didn't miss any spot and soak up the excess. After the Scotch-Brite pad, then I use the blue paper towel to rub off any excess and just repeat in sections all the way across the floor. Lastly, I added some baseboard and some shoe molding to cover up the gap on the wall. And I absolutely love these floors. They came out perfect. They look super natural, but took out a lot of that yellow and oranges. So what do you think of my new floors? If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss my next awesome build. Oh, and this is like the truest depiction of the color I could get. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember, build loud, build wild, and have an awesome day.